coming up, this year's GuignolFest play is play about a rocker that a lot of people know about, but I don't think he gets the credit he deserves in terms of what him and his original band achieved in terms of influence. And I don't want to say his name outright, but I will say the play is probably going to be titled Shock Opera. And it's about a guy who can actually claim probably started a bunch of movements in rock, or at least a bunch of styles, at least had a seminal influence. Everything from glitter to punk to metal. And it doesn't take much for you to guess that if I were to say, you know, he was a guy who brought theater back into rock and roll, that is probably a guy who rhymes with air conditioning. Or, sorry. Anyway, the play has to do with the formative years of a guy who and his friends who created a band in the 60s. And they're almost like the Forrest Gump of rock and roll. They just seem to be at every turn when something was about to change in the culture, at least, you know, from the years of, for example, 65 to 75. And you can narrow it down from there. But so tentatively titled Shock Opera, and it's kind of a tour de force. It's going to be GuignolFest people, which basically means people I know who work on movies for our festival annually in October. Everybody I know who wants to be involved. This time around, we're also pairing up with Rocket from Black Lodge Burlesque, and the other part of the four, Matt Stanger, Mr. Gotham-A-Go-Go himself. Guy who wrote Bikini Creature Beach Feature, and is an artist and a sign maker and an airbrush genius, and just a cool guy and a DJ. So we're all working together to work on this show called Shock Opera, and I just don't feel like saying the guy's name. And in terms of future ideas, we have a couple things we're working on. Possible live production of the Alice Cooper story, written by me.
Is that Groucho Marx?
Yeah, Groucho was a friend of Alice Cooper's, and he used to go to Groucho's house because Groucho was an insomniac, and he did just watch movies, and Groucho would pass out with a cigar in his hand, and he'd take the cigar out so he
That'd be a
wouldn't
fun
burn
way to
himself.
say that line, actually, him just like mimicking Alice. I mean, excuse me, Groucho.
Yeah.
Actually, you're driving straight
Yeah,
to Alice.
exactly.
That could be fun.
That's not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, because he's being an asshole.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Yeah, they were buds, and of course, they were huge fans before they met him. But George Burns dragged him to a Alice Cooper concert, and they became fast friends.
George Burns.
George Burns.
God damn it,
Yeah, they met George Burns first, and just all these vaudeville guys were like, they watched him and were like, oh, this is nothing new. There was a guy with a snake back in the 20s.
If you can find anyone to possibly play George Burns, will you write a scene? George Burns. If there's anyone that we know that can play George Burns, you gotta write a scene.
I can't think of at least one thing that he talked about, but he was the guy who was like saying, what you're doing is not shocking to me. I saw this shit when I was a child in vaudeville in the 20s, you know, and it was like...
George Burns got busted getting off an airplane with pot in 1921.
Holy crap! Years before, what's his face? Was it Robert Mitchum was famous for getting busted for pot?
Yeah.
There wasn't even an FAA or TSA or anything. What do you say?
Yeah.
And he still
Yeah,
got
there
busted.
wasn't even anybody to bust you back
Yeah,
then.
she remember busted. How did it happen?
They didn't even have any airplanes. He was just at the
weird.
airport waiting.
How you could fly with snakes
That is
back
bizarre.
then?
I'd like to do one last one, if that's cool.